The point of this webinar is really to give you guys an idea of what's expected on the MBA application, the important aspects of the application, and some do's and don'ts throughout the process. I know that when you start applying for an MBA program, it can be quite daunting because you start looking at the different websites. Every school has a different program. They have different prerequisites. You start looking at rankings. You don't know which ranking to believe. And quite frankly, the process is overwhelming. So what we do at Grad School Guru is help our students get a better idea of what schools are right for them. And then we help with the application process. We help with all aspects of the process, the CVs, the transcripts, essays, everything that the schools require. So the first thing that you want to do when you're looking for, when you are deciding which schools to apply to, is to choose a range of schools that really fit you. A lot of times students come to me and they say, Amy, I want to apply to, the top 10 schools. And where do they get these top 10? Usually US News Ranking or Financial Times. They go to the website, find the top 10 and say, boom, I want to apply to all these. Okay, well, that's not the best strategy because every school is not a good fit for every person. And just because it's in the top 10 ranking of, a publication doesn't mean that it's the school for you. So what's really important is to find a school that fits you. You want to find schools that are a good fit for you. Now, when you're looking, it's good to use the rankings pages as well. They are a good standard for business schools. However, they're not the only thing that you should consider. First of all, you want to consider the fact if you're qualified or not to go to the school. So some of the top schools, they're super competitive, and they only accept a small percentage of people. So maybe in Stanford, for example, they accept 5% of their students. So when you apply for an MBA program, you spend a lot of money. You spend approximately $150 per application just for the application fee. Then you spend money translating your documents. You spend time and effort writing your essays, asking for letters of recommendation. Maybe you pay for an admission advisory service, and you spend a lot of time paying for these applications. But if you are not qualified to go to the school, then you're basically wasting your money. So honestly, you need to sit down and think about, are you qualified? You need to look at the statistics of the new classes that are entering each year and see if you can compare with these students. If not, then maybe it's better to wait a year or two before applying if those schools are really your dream schools. The GMAT is another point of comparison. In a minute, we'll look at the average GMAT scores in some schools, and you want to make sure that you have around 35 points of that average. If you don't, then you're really in the bottom 10% of the accepted group, and that 10% has to be extraordinary and have a special case, an amazing story, or something really amazing about them to be admitted with a much lower average GMAT score. Another thing you want to pay close attention to is the actual curriculum of the school. Every school has something that they're known for, something that they focus on in their curriculum. Not every MBA curriculum is the same. In fact, most of them are quite different. So you want to make sure that you're going to a place that offers you what you want. If you are looking for a case study approach, you want to apply to schools that use the case study approach. If you are looking for something that's very heavily quantitative, you want to go to a school that's more focused on quantitative. If the place that you want to work or the industries that you want to work in, if they recruit from the school that you're looking at. Many times schools will directly go to the graduating class. Companies will go directly to the graduating class and recruit from there. And these statistics are usually on the school's websites, so you can look and see what your dream job is and see if these if these kinds of jobs that people are getting who are graduating from the school. Another good tip is to go to LinkedIn and just type in, I don't know, for example, Wharton MBA, and look at all the people who have Wharton MBA on their LinkedIn profile, and you can see what jobs they're doing now. And you can see, does that fit your profile? Is that something that you would be interested in doing? So then you can sort of find where you fit into the MBA spectrum. The main things that the schools focus on, first of all, are your university grades, the grades that you got in school. This can be difficult for international students because there's not a standardized scale of grading throughout the world. So it's important to have other parts of your application very strong so that schools, if they don't know how to compare your grades with grades from American or European institutions, they can have other ways to evaluate you. Your GMAT score is very important as well, your CV, letters of recommendation, your essays, and if you pass to the next stage of the application process, you will usually be required to have an interview in which you may have to travel to the school, or they may do it via Skype or telephone. And not all programs require this step, but a lot of them do. To talk a little bit about the GMAT, I mentioned before that it's important to be within 35 points of the average GMAT of the school you're interested in. Here are just a few of some of the top schools, and you can see they're all 700 or above. So if you're looking to get to apply to one of the top either Ivy League schools or top 10 ranked in the Financial Times or US News, you will have to aim for around 700. Now you can see that the range goes to a little bit lower. It starts from a little bit lower, and these are these exceptional cases that I mentioned before. Yes, they may admit one or two people with a lower GMAT, but again, you have to be extraordinary. You have to have done something amazing, discovered the cure to a disease, or worked with the president or something to make you super special for them to overlook a poor GMAT. So many people apply to these programs that the GMAT is a good indicator of where they need to make cuts. So if they get 10,000 applications and they have many qualified people, then what they'll do is they'll make a cut based on the GMAT. They'll say, okay, anyone who got less than 600, goodbye, and now we're just going to look at this group. So it's a way of whittling down the best candidates. So really, you need to make sure to spend that time studying for the GMAT. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the CV. Now, here in Peru, people have a tendency to make their CVs a million pages long and mention every little thing that they've ever done in their life. This is not what you want to do for MBA applications. You want to be very clear, very short, and concise. Usually, they prefer to have the resume fit on one page. That's sort of like the norm. However, there are cases where if it goes onto 2 pages, it's not the end of the world, especially if you are doing an MBA later and maybe you have 10 years of work experience, or if it's for an executive MBA and you have maybe 10 to 15 years of work experience. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to fit it on a page. Even so, try to do it. Put the most important things, and make sure to highlight your accomplishments. Many people forget about this. Many people just put what they did, their day-to-day duties, their responsibilities, but they forget to mention things that they actually achieved. These programs are looking for people who add value to companies and organizations. So you want to show how you have added value in the places that you have worked, and you want to show that with data. So you want to be able to say, maybe you cut costs in a company or something. So you want to say like by what % you did or how you did it. Or maybe you increased productivity in some way. You want to explain how you did that. And if you have the hard data, the numbers, then it's even better because you can show quantitative data of how you have added value to a company. So keep in mind to highlight those aspects on your CV. So now moving on to the letters of recommendation. So this is, I receive a lot of questions about the letters of recommendation because many people don't really know where to start. Many times people who come to me say, okay, I want to get, my dad knows the brother of the roommate of the CEO of the company where I work, and he can give me a letter of recommendation. Now, this happens a lot, and it's true. I even had one student tell me that she could get the president of Peru to write a letter of recommendation for her because there was a way that she could get it. Now, it may sound impressive that the president of the country or the CEO of a company can write you a letter of recommendation. It may sound impressive, but the actual letter is not going to be impressive. What you need is somebody who knows you and who has seen your work and who can write something meaningful. And somebody who doesn't know you at all, but who is doing a favor for a friend, is going to write something generic. So even though it's tempting to try to go, to the big boss, try to get someone who actually knows you. Usually this is going to be your direct supervisor or somebody who is above you, who has worked closely with you and can give tangible examples. At some schools, they do ask for a colleague or a peer to write a letter for you, but that's not usual. So in some cases, you may ask a colleague, but usually you want to ask your direct supervisor, and sometimes you also want to ask a teacher from school. I don't think I had that on the poll. The essays are very particular to each school. They require a lot of thought, and they cannot be a generic essay that you copy and paste for each school. You really want to know why you're doing an MBA before you even look at the essays and why you're choosing this school as well. So each school has different essay questions, and the essay questions that the schools give really reflect the profile of the school. You'll notice that each school has their own way of asking a question, and you want to answer it based on the profile of that school. So many times my students say, but can't we just change the name of the school and just put the same essay? No, you can't. Each essay has to be different. There may be parts that you can, change a bit, like, your basic goals and things like that can be used for everything, for different schools, but you really need to tailor the essay to the school that you're applying to. So for that, you want to make sure that you do your homework. Like I said before, when you're finding if these schools are a good fit for you, you want to make sure that you know about the school as well, so that when you're writing the essay, that comes across. Another thing is that you want to be personal. You want to tell a story that's interesting. This is hard for a lot of people because what they have a tendency to do is sort of regurgitate what's already on their CV. So they'll say, I graduated from this university in 2005, and then I got a job here where I got promoted to this job, and I worked there, and then I did this. That's not what you want to do. You want to tell a story that's interesting. This is really where you're going to differentiate yourself from other candidates, and the last thing that you want to be is boring. So you have to think, what makes you different? What makes you unique? Why would this school want you? And that's what needs to come across in the essay.